On today's episode of You Asked, what's the best way to sell or get rid of a TV? When does TV size matter most in terms of features? And why does everyone want brighter OLEDs? Because one of our viewers thinks his is already too bright as it is. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. This is You Asked, the show where we answer your tech questions. If you've got something you want to know, send your question to youasked@digitaltrends.com. And don't forget to tune into the show to see if your question has been selected. Soccer Lou Mike has our first question and asks, what is the best way to sell or get rid of your old TV so you can upgrade and replace it with a new one? Great question, and one I'm sure a lot of people ask as they replace their older units. And also, yeah, nothing is cheap these days, so any way you can put the sale money toward a new purchase helps a lot. So let's start there. If you know you're going to put the money toward your next TV purchase, it's worth looking into trade-in programs offered by some retailers. Not all TVs will qualify, and you probably won't get the most money for your trade-in, but the value is in what should be a pretty easy process. I also recommend looking beyond the mainstream stores. See if there are any specialty TV or video stores in the area that might be more open to trades and maybe even offer more money for your trade-in. And this goes for electronics across the board. There are usually trade options to be found in a lot of different places. Now, if maximizing value is what you're looking for, you could try Facebook Marketplace, where you can set your own price. But what you may get in money, you probably lose in ease of transaction. Be prepared for lowball offers and sometimes some shady buyers. However, in cases where you just need to get rid of the TV period, we have a few more options. Regarding Facebook, buy nothing groups are always a good place to help someone in need. There's just always someone looking for a new TV and ready to come pick it up. And finally, some manufacturers have recycling programs you can look into. There are also local recycling options, especially here in Portland, and you could also call a junk removal service if it's a large TV that you need to get rid of but may not be able to move yourself. But Mike, in your case, I'd say if you can't trade it in, list it on Facebook, use word of mouth with friends, and get what you can for it. Staying with the sustainability theme, Mr. Blue says, I have a 2020 Sony AH8 OLED. I want to buy a new OLED this year, possibly 75 inches or even larger. Have OLEDs improved sustainability since 2020? Now, Mr. Blue, I'm answering this question assuming you mean sustainability from an environmental point of view. But if you meant sustainable as in, will my OLED last longer? Well, feel free to follow up with another email. Anyway, to my knowledge, OLED TVs have become more sustainable as technology has improved. They have the potential to be the most efficient TVs available, but at the same time, they can also be more power hungry than a lot of other TVs because of how they're powered. So let's explain that real quick. They create light at the pixel level and turn completely off when they display black. So without a backlight needed to create a picture and darker scenes on OLED TVs, there are a lot of pixels that just aren't powered on and the TV isn't consuming as much power. But the opposite is true in brighter scenes. That's when all of those little pixels are pumping out bright light and color, therefore consuming more power. So how good it is at being sustainable depends on what you're watching. I'd say if you're watching a lot of sports, not super efficient, at least not that much more than an LED TV. Another thing to consider is all or most TVs these days have some sort of efficiency or energy saving mode. Some of them are already in that efficiency mode by default out of the box. They'll limit brightness to save energy, but it's a good way to make them more sustainable. Despite what we always recommend, turning that efficiency mode off for the best picture quality, if sustainability is your goal, try watching with the brightness turned down and seeing if that picture is okay with you. The biggest factor for sustainability is going to be size and brightness. A quick bit of research tells me that LG's OLED TVs have a good reputation for being energy efficient, and their B series lineup is a good one to consider in that department. It's one of the most energy efficient because it's not one of their brightest. So I'd only recommend it if you're in a room where the TV doesn't need to compete with too much ambient light. Bottom line, I think you'll see improvements with an upgraded OLED, but sustainability will fall largely on your preferred brightness settings and what content you're consuming most often. Speaking of brightness, Simon thinks we're all crazy and asks, why does everyone want more and more brightness? I've got my LG C4 at 15%. Well, Simon, straight up, everyone just has different needs from their TV. I love that you only need to run yours at 15%, and I assume you're watching in a pretty dark room. But for those watching in brighter rooms or with daylight coming through windows, they're gonna want that extra punch of brightness. For instance, if you have your TV in a movie or filmmaker mode, which typically do a good job of honoring creator intent, and it's a really dark scene that's intentionally shot dimly lit, without a little help from the TV, you may really struggle to see what's happening in that scene. Watching sports, often during the daytime with ambient light, also creates a need for some added brightness ability. But most important, you're gonna want that brightness for viewing HDR content. If you've ever seen highlights that look flat or like they should be brighter, it's not a pretty sight. Those extra nits make the sun, stars, and bright objects just stand out a lot better. Still, this is a question we get somewhat often, so I'd be curious to know what some of the rest of you in the comments run your TVs at in terms of brightness. Are you maxed out like me, or do you take your foot off the gas a little bit? Finally, Jiggle asks, does it really matter if I were to get a 42 or 48-inch TV if 55 inches and up are too big? Am I gonna miss out on a lot of stuff? I'm looking to buy a small form factor OLED TV that has superb upscaling like the Z95B or Z90A from Panasonic, depending on the price. Well, the TV size affecting the features all depends on the model. I don't know a ton about those two models other than that when Panasonic announced the Z95B earlier this year, they did so with it coming at 55, 65, and 77 inches with the coveted 4-layer or RGB tandem OLED panel. So I don't know if that one even qualifies for you. Now, if you look at other brands like Samsung and some of their OLED models, for example, that's where you need to pay more attention to size and prioritize the features that matter before you buy. With their S90F, which does come in the smaller 42 and 48-inch sizes, you're only gonna get the quantum dot OLED panel at 55, 65, and 77 inches, giving you that boost in color volume and brightness. Every other size, including the even larger 83-inch unit, comes with a WRGB OLED panel. It's still a stunner, especially being OLED at that size, but it's just not their best. Same for their 42 and 48-inch models. They look great, just not QD OLED. You may also get differences in speaker size and configurations, an included TV stand or wall mount, and other auxiliary accessories or features that may vary by size. So before you pull the trigger, make sure you know what's in the box and do your research on sites like Ratings that publish the panel types and the differences between sizes in their reviews. That's all for this week, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to weigh in with your personal experiences in the comments. They're always really helpful for all of us learning together. Don't forget to get your questions in, and we'll see you next time.